All right, in this video, we're gonna do a deep dive into the tactical carbine. We'll discuss the optimal setup, shooting fundamentals, and how to get you shooting faster and more efficiently right away, so stay tuned. All right, welcome back. This is Carlos with Range 11 Tactical. On this channel, we create content full of use of tips, techniques, and or drills just like this one to help you expand and build your tactical knowledge base. So if you're new, please consider subscribing. All right, perfect. So we're going to do the deep dive onto the tactical carbine, right? We're going to discuss optimal setup, sling considerations. We'll also discuss proper loading procedures, good body fundamentals, and make sure you stick around to the end because I'm going to share some drills that you can implement today to get you faster and more efficient. So here we go. All right, so let's talk about the AR15 platform. This is by far one of the most common tactical carbines used in the United States. I would say 95%, if not more, of all tactical teams and law enforcement, police departments use this weapon system on a day-to-day basis. And on the military side, it goes without saying, this is probably the go-to weapon system for most tactical applications, right? Two main variants of this system. You got your piston operated or your gas operated system. This is a gas operated carbine. So basically all that means is as I fire a round, there's a small hole in the barrel that reverts some of the gases back through the gas tube into the bolt carrier gas key, and then it goes through the cycle of operations. Super easy, super reliable, awesome weapon system. So let's get into the setup considerations here. All right, perfect. So before we get into that, setting up with the rifle, let's talk about slings, right? Slings are a must-have on your AR-15 platform. If you don't have a sling, it's like having a pistol and no holster, right? So many types of slings. You got 3-point, 2-points, and 1-point slings. 3-point slings you really don't see out there very much. 2-point is probably the most common slings out there. And then you got your single points. Downside of the single points is they're attached on 1 point. So if you go hands off, then it's kind of flopping around. So your 2-point's going to be kind of your go-to. This is a VTAC sling by Cal-Lam. Super awesome system. Beauty of this is I can stow it, I can go hands-on. If I have to transition to a pistol, my weapon system is still on me. So slings, if you don't have one, get a sling. All right, perfect. So let's talk about setting up your tactical carbine, right? So of course, primarily you're gonna need some kind of aiming device, your sights. So this is a red dot. Most tactical carbines will have a red dot type sight on there. It could be an EOTech. This is a 6-hour Romeo, but some kind of red dot is primarily what's employed in the tactical world. Followed by that, you're going to need your backup sights, right? In case your primary goes down, you need to have some way to aim if your primary goes down, and then a light source, right? There's all kinds of gadgets you can add onto that, your IR aiming devices, all kinds of stuff. But primarily, as long as you got your primary, your secondary sights, and a white light, you'll be fine. You'll be able to do 99% of all tactical applications required with this weapon system. So let's talk about extending our points of contact on here, right? Contrary to proper belief, everybody back in the day, when I first came in the military, everything was tight and compact. That's all past practices. Is actually not as efficient. You want to have this weapon system extended out as far as possible, right? It gives you more leverage onto the system. If you watch my past video on the pistol, we talked about leverage. You haven't checked that out. But same thing applies to here, right? I want to extend my points of contact as far as possible on here, right? Give you an example. If I were to give you a 2x4, 8-foot 2x4, and I tell you to point it from one point to the next, would you grab that 2x4 by the end and try to maneuver it around, right? It wouldn't be very efficient. Or would you grab that 2x4 out, extend it as possible, and then you would maneuver it that way, right? Same thing with this, right? So the further my points of contact are extended on this weapon system, the more leverage and the more control I'm going to have on this weapon system, right? So long gone are the days of everything tight and compact. That's not used anymore. You want to extend everything out and have as much maneuverability onto this weapon system as you can. All right, cool. So we got our AR or tactical carbine set up. We got our sling, we got our light, or we got our sights. Our buttstock is extended. Now it's time to load our weapon system, right? So a couple options here. My preferred method is I'm going to lock the bolt to the rear, and I'm going to perform a safety check while I'm doing that. That way I know the status of this weapon prior to feeding some rounds into it, right? So once my bolt is locked to the rear, I'm going to grab a magazine. I'm going to insert the magazine, tug the magazine, and at that point I'm going to release the bolt, letting it go forward. That strips a round from the top of the magazine, insert to the chamber, right? So other option to load the weapon system is with the bolt forward. I would have inserted the magazine in the same fashion. At that point, I would have grabbed the charging handle, slingshotted it back, let the bolt take one off from the top of the magazine, and at that point we are loaded. So once we have done that, the next step is to conduct the press check. Couple options on the press check. Option number one will be to remove the source of ammunition, right? If I insert a 30-round magazine, which I did, my rounds would have been on the right-hand side. Now that my rounds are on the left-hand side, I know that there has been, in fact, one round stripped from the top of the magazine into the chamber. The other option, my preferred option, is to simply grab the charging handle, pull it maybe an inch or two to the rear. At this point, I can observe, and if it was nighttime, feel for a piece of brass attached to the bolt face. At that point, once I've confirmed that there is a round ready to be chambered, I will release the charging handle, hit my forward assist just for double check, just to ensure that that bolt is completely seated, and now I am ready to go. And this weapon system is 100% operable at this moment. All right, perfect. So let's talk about the basic fundamentals with tactical carbine, right? They all going to apply similar to the pistol. You're going to have your steady position, sight alignment, trigger press, breathing, fall through. All those things kind of come into play. Some of them more than others, depending on the position. For example, breathing, if you're in the prone position, is going to be a little bit more important than if you're standing, but they're all come into play. Let's talk about stance, right? To me, especially from the standing position, this is one of the most important ones that we can be efficient at. So number one, I'm going to get it squared off to the target, similar to the pistol, right? It's just more biomechanically more efficient, right? Nobody walks tactically kind of sideways, similar to what we talked about. You want to square yourself off to the target. Number two, I'm going to have my feet slightly more shoulder width apart with my dominant side leg kicked back, and I'm going to bend my knees, right? This is going to be my good athletic stance. Now all I need to do is slightly lean forward, similar to the pistol. You'll notice that my back leg, my spine is on line. I'm simply leaning forward into my stance, right? And this is where I'm going to be efficient. I can move if I need to. I can do all kinds of things from here, but I'm going to be able to manage that recoil efficiently, even though these weapon systems are minimal recoil, but I am efficient and I can maneuver from this position here. So this is going to be your good tactical stance right there. Cool. All right. So now that we got a good fighting stance, good aggressive stance, kind of canted forward, let's talk about grip and presentation. Right. So I want to put the buttstock into the meaty portion of my shoulder, that pocket right here. Right? I've seen a lot of guys, they'll kind of have this buttstock way up off of their shoulder. That's a no-no, right? You want to have that buttstock nice and firm into that pocket right here, right? So that all that recoil is going straight back and into your body, down your leg, and absorbed by the ground, right? So that buttstock nice and tight. This is the most important part here. This is where most schools or older schools of thought used to say that everything's collapsed in here, right? You don't want to do that. You want your support hand side to be out as far as possible onto this weapon system, right? And that's going to create that leverage to stop from target to target, right? Past practices was to be all collapsed in here. Couple of issues with this, right? Number one is I'm not as efficient at stopping from target to target, right? If I'm doing bullseye shooting, it doesn't really matter. But for tactical applications, you need to have that hand out here. Another issue with this is you could potentially induce a malfunction, right? If you're grabbing that by the magazine well, your fingers are now either holding the ejection port cover closed or in the way, and you could actually induce a malfunction by having this closed up grip. So number one, it's not efficient, and number two, this can actually induce malfunction. So make sure that you have a good seated, the buttstock is seated nice in the pocket, your support hand is out and firm, and this is where most of the grip happens, right? I'm actually going to pull that weapon system into the pocket with my support hand, and I'm going to roll my shoulder forward to hold it in here, right? My strong hand, my firing hand, simply going to go onto the pistol grip, and I'm still going to apply a little pressure with that, but most of it's coming from my support hand side. The other thing, common mistake that I see is a lot of guys will chicken wing this hand out. You want this elbow in nice and tight so that you can work that, right? So if you look at my trigger finger with my elbow down, it comes straight back. If I were to cant it up, what it actually does is now it changes the angle of my trigger finger, so now I have to rotate my hand, and it's not efficient, right? So if I keep my elbow down, everything's in line, and I can pull that trigger straight to the rear. Cool. So that's going to be it right there. One last time. So the buttstock nice and tight into the pocket of my shoulder. my shoulder roll forward, support hand out as far as comfortable, and then my strong hand with my elbow down in tight in a good body position. And then when I bring the weapon system up, I simply bring the weapon system in line with my eyes. I don't want to do this whole ducking and diving with my head. I want to be as efficient as possible, so it's going to come straight up into my natural point of aim right there. Cool. All right, so now that we understand good body mechanics, good forward lean, we have our support hand out extended, our buttocks out, we have a lot of leverage on this weapon system, and we are ready to roll. I just want to cover a few things before we get into the drills as promised, right? Number one is what happens when this bullet actually leaves this weapon system, right? So these weapon systems are actually, the barrels are actually canted slightly upward, right? It's in order to compensate for gravity. So as the bullet leaves, it goes in an upward arch and it comes back down. When you zero this weapon system, all you're doing is you're aligning your line of sight of your sight, right, with the trajectory of the round. So here's my sight line, here's my bullet, and they intersect at a certain point. For example, for me, I have this zeroed at 50 meters, right? So meaning that at 50 meters, my line of sight and my bullet trajectory intersect. Why is that important to me, right? In a tactical application, I need to know that because anything before 50 meters, what's going to happen? My bullet is still lower than my line of sight. So if I were to take a shot before 50 meters, I'm going to be low. So it's very important, especially in the CQC world, right, where everything's 5 to 10 yards. So I'm clearing a structure. I'm rarely going to take a 75, 100-yard shot or even 50. Most likely it's going to be 5 to 10 yards. So understanding that is important. The other thing that comes into play is what's called mechanical offset, right? My height over bore. So my sights, if you look at this, they're about 1.5 inches, 2 inches higher than my barrel, right? So if I place my sights center mass onto the head, I'm actually going to hit low, right? If I'm going for center mass shots, maybe not a big deal, but if I'm doing that HR type event or there's a subject with partial cover, maybe there's cinder block wall and I just see a minimal exposure, I need to compensate for those things, especially at those closer distances. So we're going to go into some of the drills that I promised as the bonus here at the end, but I want you to understand that. Another thing to consider too is as I'm doing these demos, they're specific to my height over bore, my zero, right? So make sure that when you go out to the range, you do it for yourself and you understand what your holds are, because while they'll be similar to my holds, they won't be exactly the same. So here we go. All right, cool. So drill number one is all we're going to do is we're going to check our mechanical offset, right? So let me go ahead and load. All right, so I am good to go. So I got X down here. I'll show you the shot here in a minute. All I'm going to do is I'm going to place my dot on the X and I'm going to see what that ratio is. I'm about 5 yards, so we're going to take a couple shots and just see kind of where we're at there. All right, so if you notice from this distance with my dot on the X, I'm actually about maybe 3 inches low. So now I understand my hold. I'm going to compensate for that. I'm going to bring my sights up so I can hit the X. So one more time, now that I'm going to compensate for it. Now you can see that I've kind of figured out what my mechanical offset is, and I'm compensating for that at these closer distances. All right, cool. The next drill we'll cover is the up drill. This is by far probably the most commonly used drill in the tactical world. It's simply having good body mechanics on the threat, command, beep. Doesn't really matter what it is. It could be your buddy next to you selling threat. You're going to present the rifle to the target, get a good sight picture, and fire one round. The applicability of this, right? You're clearing a structure. Your threat appears. You bring your rifle up. You take that shot. So very effective, very good drill. You can do it at different distances. It could be steel, paper, doesn't really matter, but the concept's still the same. Quick demo on it, so here we go. All right, that's one right there. One more time. All right, and we can do it from high ready as well. It doesn't really matter. Here we go. All right, so that's it right there. I'm simply presenting the gun. Everything's nice and tight, good aggressive stance, getting my sights quickly, and firing one shot. You do that over and over and over again, you're going to get really fast at acquiring your sights and taking that shot when it counts. So that's the up drill in a nutshell. Recommend you guys do this one as a warm-up every time you go to the range because it's super effective, super good drill, and it's not that high of a round count drill. All right, So this was the rifle fundamentals in a nutshell, right? We covered good body mechanic, that leaning forward into the rifle, how to set it up, you know, the major components for a tactical rifle, and we did a couple of drills to help you kind of build on those fundamentals. Please leave me a comment down below if you found this video useful and any ideas that you have for other videos you'd like me to discuss. Also, consider subscribing so you can catch my latest videos. Stay safe and train hard.